can't hear anything. What the fuck?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Tell her to shake her head if she can hear me.
Okay, can you guys hear me now? Now you can hear me. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. Gosh, I'm so sorry, guys. Let's spread the word and let's try to restart this whole program again. I'm sorry. I have no idea what's going on here. Why this happens to us when we come in? Well, I shouldn't say I have no idea. I believe with the two fellows you see here on the show today, they'll be able to explain to you that the corruption is overwhelming. And maybe this is just how we need to start the show, is that they're trying to silence our voices. And I brought on two people who I strongly believe in that are running for governor and lieutenant governor of the state of New York. what I was trying to say before, guys, and welcome you all to the platform. I want to thank CPS News Network for allowing us to have it here. It's also showing on my regular Facebook page. So if you're on my regular Facebook page, thank you for joining and sharing. Spread the word, get this message out. And it's also on my YouTube channel, Punish No More and Free to Protect. I am Francesca Amato, the author of the book, Punish for Protecting the Injustice System of Family Court. That's why I got these two guys on here. And also just the expansion of so many different areas within society and within families that are just infiltrated with corruption and child trafficking and so on and so forth. Why is this important to you if you're looking at this anywhere in the nation, that we have a good governor in New York State? Well, because in 1962, the Family Court Act was put into place without your vote, the people, not in Congress and not in any state. And yet in New York State, it's spreaded across the country and affects you every single day. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce two good friends of mine, as well as two people who I support highly, Derrick Gibson, running for New York State Governor, and Anthony Cibelli, running for Lieutenant Governor of New York. So hi, guys, and thanks for being here today. I know that I noticed you have some background noise, Derrick. I don't know what that sound is, but every time you unmute, it sounds almost like traffic. It's a weird sound. I don't know if that can be somehow helped. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to introduce you and bring you out first, have you talk about what you're, what are some of the topics that you have on your platform running for governor of New York.
Right, and I can barely hear you. I can't hear you too well. Maybe your mic may need to be adjusted or whatever. But yes, I'm Derrick Gibson, a candidate for New York State Governor. I'm pretty sure everybody's familiar with me at this particular point. I'm a hard stomper, hard knocker, no PC, and I'm in the race to bring common sense practices back to New York State, which we seem to be lacking for the lack of 20 years. So I'm in the race to bring common sense policies back, give the voices back to the people. We have a lot of things going on in the state of New York. Every day something new is coming up. So things are changing constantly, it's changing fast. And we can't wait till November comes so we can put a stop to all of the nonsense and return New York State back to its greatness.
And hi, Fran, and thank you all for watching. Thank you, Fran, for having us on. Thank you, Derrick, for taking me under your wing and being someone who's concerned about children and families and outcomes with custody and visitation and all sorts of litigation, because it's not a conspiracy theory to know that the system's been harming children and families, the same children and families it says it's protecting, while fulfilling the state's compelling interests, allegedly, to protect children. But more harm is being done than good. That's a fact. People are allergic to accountability. Too many children have died and been abused. And, children and families need a voice. And apparently we're the voice for them. And we're going to act under God. And we're going to advocate for what we see is needed and be a voice for the people, like Derrick said.
Well, I just love having both of you on here, and I'm sorry if you can't hear me that great. I apologize to the viewers as well. It seems like the sound is back now, so thank God for that. So I'm happy for that. And yes, people, if you have questions for Derrick and for Anthony today, please be sure to put them into the comments section so that I will be sure to ask before this hour is up. I do have some questions myself that I want to ask. As you both know, I support you 100%, and I'm doing everything I can on my end to gain as much attention, and also so any viewers that don't know either of you, that will get to know who you are. I only support real people. I only support human beings. I don't want to support this fake system. I don't want to support people that have a political pocketbook in any way, shape, or form. I want people that genuinely have a heart, number one, for God, number one, because if you have a heart for God, you're going to have a heart for families and care about what happens with children. And I already know that about, both of these gentlemen. So I know that the agenda that I have, which is to abolish this system and to rebuild something that is, going to protect my families that I have thousands upon thousands of suffering families every day, and it's absolutely insane. And nobody, it's not that they're not listening, they don't care. We already know that they built this on intentionally, and so we've been blessed to be able to have ways to help protect families and get their children back home where they belong. Thank you for the people that are writing right now. We have people that are already saying they support you both and they're so excited about having you. Thank you all for the courage to continue this fight. There is a voice and a choice for parents, and here they are right here. So yes, thank you for writing that in, and thank you for saying that you support both Derrick and Anthony. We want to hear about other aspects of your platform. Obviously, it's not just about this, although this is the core issues. Obviously, people need to understand that without our families intact and without government interference on our families, we don't, it doesn't matter who we vote in, okay? They're suffering, that's it. But why don't we start with you, Derrick? Why don't you give us a little, a bit about what are some of your goals? Because I really, I'm hoping, praying, and doing everything I can to get you in that office. Okay, now I have to have you unmute, Derrick. Unmute. Sorry.
I was saying that your volume is very low, so I can't understand what are you saying. Are you asking a question or whatever? I can't hear it.
Okay, Derrick, can you just tell us a little bit about some of your goals as our governor? Some of your goals as our governor, obviously pertaining to families, but other goals as well, that people that, would like to hear about some of your other
If I'm hearing you
goals.
right, you asking about some of my goals as governor. Have a lot of goals. As you know, New York State is in disarray. So we are on here basically talking about family court and the justice system, what is going on today and it's been going on for a while on the Democratic administration for the last 20 years. But my goal is to rearrange, to dissolve and rearrange the family court system because it is detrimental to the family itself, and it's no longer serving as a justice for our children. Basically, breaking up the family. There's a lot of other things that is behind this particular CPS and ACS. It's not beneficial at all to the parents. As a parent myself, 10 children, I've had a run-in with CPS in the state of New York also. And I know it's not being carried out like it should have been. Like Rudy Giuliani, current former mayor Rudy Giuliani, brought that in, and it worked well when he first brought it in. But the system has been abused. It's being played for monetary funds and so forth and so on. But it's a lot needs to be changed in the New York State justice system. And I do have those goals to change that, and I would do just that as governor. I would sign executive orders. Not only that, but then I would work with the state legislature to get these things removed that shouldn't be in place. That is giving the parents a disadvantage and giving the current, I would say, judges the 100-yard dash to do whatever they want to do. So we have to put things in place. We have to bring civilians in and form a committee, and all the things that are currently going to have to be looked at it, and the ones that it's no good, it has to be dissolved and maybe replaced with something, or maybe not replaced with something. There are other avenues that we can go to help our children and help the parents instead of taking kids out of home uh, for things that is non-violent, non-sexual. Kids shouldn't be removed from the home. You should be allowed to rear your kids in the right way, and I will put policies in place to do that.
Thank you, Derrick. Audience, please also, questions. If you have questions, especially if you're a New Yorker and you have questions for these two candidates, please feel free to put them in comments and I will ask them. Anthony, hi again. And Anthony, where is the system failing, would you say, with regards to reform?
Well, that's a good question, Fran, and thanks for having us on. When we look at all the reforms across the system in New York when it comes to the legal and justice system, it's really interesting because even across the nation, no one really reads anything or actually follows these things. And I think that it's significant. People like myself and many advocates and activists, people who know what's going on, that we be heard, because when you're experiencing the system, it's very easy to understand that it's not really being reformed for the benefit of us. It's being not, for the litigants. It's usually for the benefit of the individuals involved who are deemed the professionals, such as attorneys, these specialists, these judges, and also for private corporate interests, which, we I believe that the system's failing in the sense of reform is because everything is actually working to benefit a very small area. And these small areas that I'm talking about are the corporations that are controlling our states. And when I say that, it's like it's such a monopoly. So we have no chance out here. So we need people like myself and people that can really analyze and assess so that we can bring the solutions to take away this monopoly that's not providing these equitable outcomes for children and families. And it demonstrates why, litigation and these custody proceedings and all sorts of things can take for years and be so protracted, and people actually end up suffering more abuse than could have even potentially existed in the first place. And it's just something where the system's failing. We're told constantly that we have criminal justice reform. Now we know, as more conservative people, the real failures of that. And it's really, and looking at that from someone with a perspective that I've actually seen the inside of these institutions before, someone like myself understands that we need reform. Especially, there should have been some sort of bail reform, but nothing like the amount of what we see, which has just brought more ridiculous, outcomes out here, banking off of recidivism. And I'm going to correlate this right now. So we have the bail reform that people are being told to celebrate about. We see how it's putting violent offenders back onto the streets very easily. Then we have the people that are against it, advocating that judges need more discretion. So as we also see these other things happening, we hear of discovery reforms. Well, that sounds good that we have automatic discovery, but we understand that there's prosecutions, criminal proceedings that could come out of family court matters through OPs, violations, whatever the false allegations. And then prosecutors are not actually complying with true discovery. They're withholding exculpatory information. And we see this happening a lot. Derrick, he recently sent out a letter on behalf of someone that we know. And he has done so in the past and actually benefited that individual who was a father who had a massive, exorbitant amount of child support that he could not even pay. He was really, really ill, suffering from multiple diseases and organ issues, and couldn't work because of COVID and his illness. And they're putting this guy in jail on the weekends. They would never arrange for him to have a bed. He was an older man too, in his 60s. It was just horrible. And Derrick was concerned once we had brought it to his attention. And, he sent out a letter. And soon after, the situation cleared up for the guy. Now, I hope to think it was because of the letter, but it was, someone like Derrick who was concerned, meant well, and then, thank God, something happened to benefit. So the other day, we found out that there's a prosecutor, and this is derivative of a family court case, which is very ridiculous, and false arrest that was done. And the prosecutors are withholding exculpatory information, which would show that that parent was at a place at a time for a reason, to facilitate visitation upon a custody order. Yet he can be brought up on multiple charges, even for trespassing government property. So it's ridiculous. So we need more transparency, more accountability, and there has to be integrity. If someone lies against you, that's it. That you should be able to show the lie. But what do we see? We see people getting disappeared off of cases. where they can say they can go on leave for 2 years when their initial petitioner, when they caught lying throughout, and they make these people disappear, and you have to continue to suffer. So the system's failing, and the reason why it's failing is because of private interests. In New York, the United States, and abroad, about 18 or 19 countries, there's a corporation that has huge control by the name of Maximus. And there's someone out there, Jack Pendergrass. He's been contributing to shedding light on that corporation, and there's many interesting individuals involved that we're all aware of, who are out in the political and social justice reform, donating money campaigns. But it's just a monopoly, and we need to get back to reality. And if anything, I'm not about keeping people in abusive situations if they're truly abusive, but if anything, if the system is going to be involved, if the state's going to be involved, it should be trying to keep families together and really figuring out what's happening, assessing what's going on. But obviously, and I'm going to end it right here, obviously, it's fair to say that all the individuals involved that we experience it in these courts and we see others experience, they're just there for the money and whatever their narrative is going to be. And, we can.
I think your sound kind of went a little. Just check your area. You might have to come out and come back in. Derrick, I hope you could hear me. I have more questions, obviously, for Anthony. I have questions for Derrick. One of the things which and one of the things that Anthony's actually Anthony, I'm gonna mute you for a second. You have to clear up your sound. Your sound is not good right now. I'm gonna bring Derrick. Ask a question for Derrick here, and then we'll come back to you. One of the things with this whole bail reform thing, okay, one of the things that I found, which helps my poor victims, is that when they're being falsely accused, if there's bail reform, at least they're not in jail for some false allegation, but they're still having to either get no bail at all and get out after they're arrested, or it's just quick, you know what I'm saying? So but obviously all of this stuff, and Derrick just got kicked out. All right, we'll wait for Derrick to come back in, and I think Anthony needs to come back in as well. I have a bunch of questions that are coming up right now, a bunch of questions. I've lost both my guests, but we'll get them back in here. I've lost both my guests, so just wait for them to come back in. I see all your questions, guys. You've got tons of questions for these two. So as soon as they come back in, we'll start asking them, and we'll bring them back in to respond. And I also personally want to talk to them about the fact that I have solutions for all of this. I've been doing this we are now pushing for 15 years. And it's time for this. Well, 15 years for me. I mean, that's not, the system's been going on for decades. So I'm just going to wait for them to come back into the queue, and we'll bring them back on live here with all your questions, with all your statements and your questions. But I have a whole holistic approach to help families that's definitely going to work. So let's bring them back, because I don't want them to miss this. Okay. Derrick. Hi, Derrick. So I'm glad you're back in. I'm waiting for Anthony to come back in. I've got tons of people asking questions to both of you now about the state of New York. Derrick, can you hear me? Can you nod? Can you hear me okay?
I can barely hear you.
Wow, it's just terrible. I don't know why this is happening, but I shouldn't say I don't know why, but one of the things, and you guys got kicked out, and this is just it's actually quite funny. I have a lot of questions from a lot of families asking a bunch of questions to the both of you. Derrick, if you can kind of touch on, and I might have to have Anthony repeat it back to you if you can't hear me, if you can kind of touch on this whole bail reform thing, because in one sense, just like Anthony said, like, it's helped some of my victims who've been falsely accused. At least they're not sitting in jail, because they're being arrested, and then they're kind of out, and then they can fight the horrible charge. At least they're not sitting behind bars. Then you got murderers that are out on the streets in the state of New York. I mean, it's all insane. And so we definitely need to kind of work on both sides of this. What are some of your intentions with that? Derrick, this one's for Derrick.
If I'm hearing you correctly, like I said, I'm having a problem with the volume, but if I'm hearing you correctly, you were touching on bail reform. I believe, yes, as governor, the first thing I would do was sign the executive. I would declare, if you can hear me, I would declare a state of emergency with the crime, and that would allow me to freeze the bail reform. so we can work through it. And bail reform is definitely needed, but not in the need in the way that the current administration is using bail reform, of letting out violence and so forth and so on. But yeah, my number one thing is to declare it a emergency in the state of New York, and me doing that, government bail reform, and we can take at it and bring the right way it's supposed to be. I'm for reform for my violation of offense like we have had and has released so on. If I'm hearing you right, you speaking about it wrong, hopefully, that is what I for.
Okay, thank you for that. I don't know your Wi-Fi. I don't know if it's your Wi-Fi. But we were hearing bits and pieces of what you were saying. It was choppy and lagging. But I'm gonna have maybe Anthony, if you can kind of expand on that as well a little bit, like some of the goals. I'm here like hoping to get you guys into office. Like I have so many solutions for the family court system. My goal is to take it down. Also, the bail reform. I feel like this is all very much interrelated. I believe that this is very much all interrelated. All of this, the child trafficking industry. As we know, I'm working very closely with Megan Walsh. She is taking down her father, John Walsh, who is a complete child trafficker. This whole system has been fake. It's a bit of fraud. We're exposing that now. We have CPS workers that are being arrested. One was just arrested in Florida. Where John Walsh is. So Anthony, if you can kind of expound on all of that, because I'm here to help as much as possible. I'm hoping you guys will be in office because, I know how to help these families, give them a healthier life. We have so many goals and we have so many solutions so that they can have a holistic life. I mean, get the healing and the therapy and all the things that they need. To restore these families and to stop this evil atrocity. But Anthony, if you don't mind touching, because you have a much clearer signal, if you can speak on that.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, I mean, it's very important because while America and the world wants people to be excited about politics and the infotainment of politics, it's like watching wrestling or General Hospital. Like I said before, I don't feel that anything's being reformed. I don't feel adequately represented, nor do I believe other communities should either, because they're suffering grave disproportionate outcomes. In knowing that we can directly link today the violence and mental illness on the street that we're not going to deny exists, but we're going to address it for the right reasons, to fix it and resolve it. And the only real way that we can do that is if we focus on, what we're focusing, family law, child welfare system. Today, I did my diligent effort in good faith as a private citizen. I met with the Suffolk County Police Commissioner, the Suffolk County Sheriff, and the District Attorney of Suffolk County. And Suffolk County is known for years of having the Gilgo Beach murders, which are clearly cover-ups. And recently, there's been some cold cases that have been solved, but I'm really trying to get these guys on board to say, hey, look, we got some crimes that are happening in the family court system, and we need to stop, we need to stop them, and we need to prevent them, because not only do we have crimes, but we have civil rights violations. And I recall not too long ago, the police commissioner, James Burke, the DA and ADAs, Thomas Spoda and McPartland, all got convicted and sent to prison for tampering with civil rights investigations. And, it is just disgusting to know that people have to sustain or expected to sustain these human rights abuses daily. That's what we'll call them, to be fair, and be separated from their children and families. So I was actually telling them about the sheriff in Florida. Hello?
Okay, you went out for a second, but you're back.
Okay, so I was actually talking with these individuals today, these officials, and I was letting them know about that Florida incident with the CPS worker, which, the major victory about that thing, that case, is that we have officials out there advocating for body cameras, because that's what has ticked me off for so long. And, shortly afterwards, the CPS had falsely committed me to a psych
Yeah,
ward as a
but I can't hear.
retaliatory. Derrick said he can't hear.
Keep going. In the meantime, I'm trying to do what I can to help to fix.
So my first point of contact with someone who was an elected official was Senator Alessandra Biaggi, and I had gone to her as being a constituent and knowing that what happened to me could not have happened if there were body cameras on these individuals, or if I was even allowed to keep my phone on at the time, because they ensured that I had it shut off. That day that I first engaged with Child Protective Services, ACS more particularly in New York City, it was just a hit job done on me. And I know that this is done to many parents. We know that deaths of children are always exploited through ambulance chasing initiatives, especially here in New York State. And, in our backyard here, in the congressman who's running as the gubernatorial favorite from the GOP, Lee Zeldin, the Thomas Valve incident happened in his congressional district, and many people had gone to him and tried to get him to speak about it, and I've tried myself, and also many people that are surrounded by him. And what needs to happen is, I never imagined that I would be in this role. We might not have $20 million, but we're integrated with the communities. We know what's really happening. I mean, we're not saying that these other people don't know, who are the alleged favorites of people, but I don't believe that we're actually, that these political parties are actually advocating for people who are concerned about correcting issues. And that's why, regardless of the petitioning process, I mean, because there's people out in Long Island here, they're handing out $50 and $100 gas cards to get their petitions signed. So, I mean, I can't give them that. Maybe I could hand out M&Ms, or, but I can allure someone.
It's like handing out. It's like what they're doing when they're handing out, handing out some other treat, money, whatever it is. I'll pay off your college if you take this. You know what I'm saying? If you take this, and people, this is called selling your soul. I mean, this is called selling your soul. We shouldn't have to offer you something to something that's worth it. Okay, you shouldn't have to have a compromise like that. And to buy and sell people. That's the whole problem in a nutshell. Okay, human life doesn't matter to these people. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it doesn't matter that all these children are suffering. It doesn't matter that these families are suffering. But if we give you something free, we'll pay your rent for a week, or a month, or we'll fill up your gas tank, or but you don't know what are you trading for that? What are you trading for that? And that's why I have you guys on today. And we're having a disaster with trying to get you guys to be heard. It doesn't shock me. I mean, I was literally censored for over a year on my main page. But it doesn't shock me that this would happen. But this message, like it matters so much to me. This message has to go out. Like, we have to have proper people in the positions of this type of authority, so that the people themselves, and that's something that I've heard Derrick say, and he's been kicked out again, is that, your vote for us basically is a vote for yourself. Like, in other words, it's a legitimate, you are now the authority back in your position and back in your rightful places. We don't have to buy you. Okay. We don't have to buy you. We just literally are telling you that we're trying to do this. You're trying to do this, in order to keep people safe, normal, basics, the basics of life. I mean,
at some point it's got to happen. I don't know how it happens. But it seems like all of these individuals that the political parties are pushing across the board are just there to keep stirring the pot, keep the money going. And unless you really know what's going on, which I wish I didn't have to know any of these horrible things happening out there, and to know that children could be kept through custody orders to be sex trafficked by their own parents and be given access to sick adults to sexually and physically abuse them and record stuff that's happening out of the family court. That is disgusting. And that magnifies what's going on all across the board. Because if that's what's happening in our backyards, in our states, and then that's not the news, but somehow, George Floyd, which is a horrible situation and a desensitizing video of a traumatic death, but he was a troubled individual, and I understand that part. But also, he wasn't the best guy out there. But how he got celebrated, and then these stories out here in Long Island and in New York that are stemming from the family court, they just get attempts to exploit them for political reasons, for fake reform, which is always looking out for these private interests or preventing the truth from getting out there. Like Steve Ballone, his response to Thomas Valva's death was criminalize the recording of CPS. That's ridiculous. How is that reform? And we see how these proceedings don't allow any truth to get out. People could get jammed up in criminal proceedings, and that's very common. But the criminal courts are usually more lenient, but they can also do a lot of dirt in these town and justice courts as well, that aren't actually part of the unified court system at all. But yet they can incarcerate you. They can tell you to go pick up your kids at a location that's right outside of a court and a police station, and then set you up. And it's just horrible. So we need people who know what's going on. And like I said, we can tie the decades of failures of this system that we're talking about just in family court alone and child welfare, and tie it into all of the issues we're seeing on the street today. And, what we need to defund is, we need to defund protecting fake victims. We need to defund protecting perjury. Prosecuting perjury, these people wouldn't be funded, but they don't want the truth to be out. And sadly, we see parents and many times being forced to lie just to obtain custody. And maybe they're doing that because in their head, they feel they love their child so much and need to secure their child and make sure they're safe. I understand that, because I understand that's people's reasoning behind it in many cases. But to know the harm that's being caused, it is just horrible. And, judges, with all the discretion they have in the family court, it's the same discretion they have in the criminal court. They can use their discretion. They can follow the law.
They have broad discretion, and it has no boundaries. It has no
that's the thing,
within reason at all. So they can make right decisions. They choose not to make right decisions.
Exactly.
I have so many dead children up and down the state of New York alone. Okay, so many. We can't even count how many dead children we have, because they intentionally put the child with the abusive person. No matter how many times they were warned, they still did it. Or CPS coming in and putting them into these foster homes. Okay, and now I'm going to be doing the Albert and Cheryl story where the little girl, they don't know how she got into the swimming pool, and she's dead now. But yet they're going to continue to supervise this mom and dad, even though you killed their child, and they kept warning you, and they were delusional for warning them about it.
Everything's backwards.
It's all backwards. And you got Thomas Valva, and the list just goes on and on. We got Mason DeCosmo. The list just goes on and on and on and on and on. There's a list that's unbelievably long, terrifyingly long, that they don't listen. And I get this 24 hours a day, all day long. My story's the worst. No, it's not. They're all absolutely horrible. And they're killing children. They're killing them. They're abusing them, and they're killing them. You can't coach a child to have a rash that lasts 2 years. You can't coach a child to do that. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So if you report something like that, that would be a normal behavior of a parent to say, something's not right here. Can we check into it? Automatically, you're taken out of the equation. You're not allowed in the equation any longer. Don't bring them to a doctor. A common sense thinking person is going to say, unless she has Munchausen, she has Munchausen by proxy, and she's just 27 times a day she's in a different doctor. That's one thing. But if you're just like, there's a legitimate issue here, and you're being restrained from taking a child to a doctor, wouldn't that be more evidence that I'm doing the responsible thing? Can we find out what's going on here? Well, maybe it is a sickness, maybe it is an illness, but let's get to the bottom of it.
I'm glad you brought that up. because we have a friend that's running. I forget the district it is, but our friend Kara Castronova, she's going to be running for assembly, and the woman who's actually incumbent goes by the name of her last name is Solanges, and she was involved with some legislation. With I forget the other woman's name, which was making it that only these domestic violence, safe centers were able to examine for child sex abuse. Now, I don't know if that passed or what the status of that bill is, because there's too many of them to follow, and they're all upside down and all around and backwards. But look at the threat that poses in knowing that a lot of these places are failing. They did in the Valva case out here in Long Island, but it's always these legislators that are advocating to bring more money into these places and stuff. So we know of all the different outcomes and how everyone's been affected, but knowing that people can cause more harm than existed in their roles, acting on behalf of the state or their professional job, whatever it is, knowing the outcomes that they can provide, which I think outweighs just what I've known in 3 or 4 years, is worse than combat PTSD. But I'm desensitized from childhood and combat, so I just have to keep going with it. But it's so disturbing knowing that every day something else is happening out there that we don't hear about.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because, and I wish Derrick could get back in. He's telling me he's having a very hard time. But I mean, obviously, we want to touch on it more with him as well. But we would, you guys would work on this as a team, and I would be as supportive as possible with my background. But studies have proven that the separation of children from primary, fit, and loving families on a whole, mothers and fathers, and then their aunts, uncles, cousins, even their neighbors, okay, causes lifelong brain damage, goes into physiological and physical illness, okay. Sorry, the mute. It causes PTSD, which now has been expanded, and thank God now they are recognizing legal abuse syndrome. Okay, so it's exactly what you said. It's exactly that. Is that sometimes it actually makes us feel better, as sick as this sounds, to even say this out of our own mouths, that sometimes they're even safer in their abuse than they are with this abusive system.
Well, you know what?
Because they're losing their entire biological bloodline.
Judicial immunity is protecting child abusers, and the child abusers that I'm talking about are not so much the parents, and some of them are, but it's the judges, it's the attorneys, it's the dishonest people, and these individuals who want to preside over proceedings, act on behalf of the state to include themselves in your life, and make horrible outcomes, look the other way. They're committing child abuse. And we need a community that's going to unify behind that. That as long as we had our children, we brought them into the world, no matter what, unless you did something totally egregious, but it has to be found, that you should not be allowed around your children. But what we see happening here is just so disgusting. But the judges are committing the abuse. The CPS is committing the abuse. These people are child abusive judges. It's the immunity, and the immunity is this. The immunity is what creates the climate. Okay, it's what creates the climate. Just how judges know. A judge recently stated, I watched an interview recently, that their head is thinking, what's the appellate department going to think of my decision? So they always know the next level up. And at the end of the day, it's fair to speculate by this point in time that sometimes people have a cup of tea with one another. All right. We recently discovered here in New York that there's some people that get their orders signed by judges when they're inebriated at the bar. So these are the kind of things that are happening. And it's just so disturbing knowing that there's great people out there that are trying their best, especially in the self-represented community. And constantly their papers don't get read, their pleadings don't get heard. And it's because it's the truth. It's laden with the truth. And the level of dishonesty in the system to commit this child abuse that these actors take part in is beyond shocking, egregious, unconstitutional, and it's evil. And these people need to be They need to be stopped. And the only way that's to be is, this is how I see it. The police community, anyone who's going to say they're against the police is an idiot. I've had bad experience, negative experience. Handle that in a lawsuit. Do whatever you want to do. I'm having a great time with it currently. But we need police. We need to maintain whatever they keep calling law and order. But I don't really know what that is, since these crazy judges are the ones, dealing with the law and order. But what we need to do is revitalize the police departments across the state. And we need the executive branch to get back to business and ending crime. And all of the crime numbers are going up, right? Substantial, especially in the streets. All of the crime, especially in New York City. But look at the number of crime that's not accounted for. That percentage that we're aware of, that we're all aware of right here. These are crimes. They need to stop. And this is driving our taxes up the wazoo. It's creating homelessness. It's why people are fleeing our state and going to other states like Florida. But at least they're in Florida now. They're willing to arrest a CPS person. And you know what? The best thing about it was the body cameras, because at the end of the day, the individual was falsifying that they were actually talking to the people. Maybe the lady actually felt that they weren't messed up or something. I don't know. Maybe she wasn't fulfilling her quota. But there's a lot of bizarre behavior happening in this environment of CPS and the judicial community. Like I said, there's people that can bring cases against people and then they disappear them, and they are not provided to be examined in court, yet their petitions can be sustained and have lasting effects of years, which are nothing short of child abuse. And that's what we need. The only way to unite everyone, and because we know there's so much division between all the communities, especially just in family law in itself. Everyone has a school of thought. That's what we'll call it. But we need a wave. The red wave that they keep talking about, I hope there's a red wave, but I don't know what other people are advocating for. I know myself and Derrick Gibson are about truth, justice, equal protection, and protecting people. We don't currently, I'm not convinced that there's other people out there that are more focused on that. And that's why in November, regardless of who's on the ballot, we're here. We're here for you. It's to make a record. Write us in.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, because right now you guys both need how many thousand just to get on the ballot?
Well, no. It's under the candidate for governor, and I believe it's 15,000. But
okay, so you need like 40,000 to be safe.
15,
so that they don't
17, 20.
Yeah.
But it's just so there was a guy the other day that was forging ballot signatures, but we already know, especially I know people have ran for office before in New York City. The Board of Elections is another, interesting community. And, if you're saying something that they don't want you saying, they'll get you off. And we saw that recently in New York City with the run for comptroller for the primary. I had a friend that was actually experiencing that. So, we just have to know that we speak the truth. We believe in God. We're not all perfect. We're trying to make ourselves better. And, we can't get sucked into the fandom of infotainment of politics. And sadly, that's what it is. There's people that are more interested in these figures, these figureheads that aren't hearing us. They can't avoid it anymore. It's imminent. Everything's coming back to the abuse of this system and the family court and child welfare. And it has to be addressed. It is imminent. It's coming soon.
I mean, how can people continue to live under this? I mean, how could people continue to live under this entire thing? I mean, even if you file a federal lawsuit, these judges that are up there, they're all in each other's pockets. So they're not going to sit here and support your federal lawsuit and look at it in an unbiased way and say, oh my goodness, I can't believe this happened. Like, how did this happen? And we got to make this right. They're not going to do that. They're going to do everything they can to help the other side dismiss their case because they're in each other's pockets. Let's face it, they're in each other's beds and they're in each other's pockets. So we don't have a judicial system. When it comes to the police, I'm like you. I've always believed in authority. Let's face it. But we have a mess here because they're taking an oath for the people and they're not following the people. They're going by whatever the judges say. So conscientiously, these people need to change. They need to be bolder. They need to be stronger. They need to stand up for themselves and our rights. When you mentioned the George Floyd thing, of course, I'm looking at that as an ADA situation, Americans with Disability Act situation. I watched it escalate. It was completely wrong. They did not know how to handle him and they did not know how to de-escalate him. Whether he was bad or good is immaterial. What should happen is he should get due process like any other human being. He shouldn't have been shot and killed. Or he shouldn't have been, I'm sorry, not shot and killed. He shouldn't have been killed in the streets like that. So there's a lot of perspectives to that. I'll put it that way. Whether I like his background or not, that's a whole different story.
Well,
but we all have the right to be heard, and we have the right to a proper judicial system, which we don't have. And that's the problem. We don't have that. I look all around every day and I see people that, if I like you, I'm going to help you. If I don't like you, I'm not going to help you. I walked into the post office. They helped one person that had a mask not on, and they helped them anyway. And then they decided not to help the next person that didn't have a mask on. And I was just like, you better either don't help anyone and be a complete idiot, or help everyone and say this is foolish and let's hold our ground. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. What I need to know and what the audience needs to know, because I'm saying governor, you know what, let's say it. Governor Gibson can't get in right now. So Lieutenant Governor Cibelli is here, but you can support some of these questions and stuff. There's a lot of different questions coming up. There's a lot of different interests. And yes, we do focus on this. This is the hub of everything. And we're trying to, for over the years, we've been trying to let you guys understand just how much this is the hub of everything. Anthony, this is the hub of everything that's happening. The taxes, all the topics that people are concerned about, the gas prices, everything, because without strong families, you can't even fight the things that are happening now that have really crashed our country. So together, I believe that you and Derrick Gibson can really revive New York. I even titled this today that you would be, bringing New York back to life, so to speak. I really believe the two of you can really bring it back. And I feel, just knowing both of you for a number of years now, I feel that the two of you would actually be able to incorporate, and Derrick's talked about this, regular people, not political people, regular people, to build committees within the governmentship of New York State. So can you kind of talk about that a little bit? This way we can kind of, whether you're Democrat or Republican, whatever you call yourself, people's lives, in other words, their livelihoods and their lives would be what you would put before anything else.
Oh yes. And, these ideas will be my own. I'm sure Derrick would agree with some, but I'm going to speak freely for myself. I would agree with, day one, declaring a state of emergency, making sure in that declaration that you're addressing a cohesive amount, or focusing on the areas that are leading to this emergency. It's not just what's occurring on the street. It's what's been happening behind the doors in courthouses, in district attorneys' offices, in all these records buildings. Records are being destroyed. There's fraudulent documents. It's horrible. It doesn't matter about the left or the right. And that's the best thing about our campaign, is that we're not representing corporate interests or baloney or BS or any of this political infotainment nonsense that we have going on. What it is representing the interests and rights of people. And that's what it's going to take to get over this nonsense, because if not, it's just going to continue on and on. And that's why people like myself and Derrick are involved. And, it's very hard to raise money and go against these things, but we're doing the right thing. Kathy Hochul, Jumaane Williams, all these people, I'd love to go on stage with them and really address what's going on, because, anyone can show up to a crime scene or where a child's just died. But if you can't make these connections, that this is the hub of why these horrible outcomes are happening, and it's actually like it's a factory for producing these horrible future outcomes and mental illness and crime. We need to stop it. And day one, I would totally support Mr. Gibson in his state of emergency. Also, I would also advocate that he would call for a Moreland Act and have that. And we remember when that happened a few years ago. And as soon as it approached Governor Cuomo's office, it stopped. And also we would have a very strong attorney general in this, because based on the situation with the petitioning process and us wanting to endure the all the way to November, being that we're all in real issues here, we're advocating for Lee Zeldin to be a write-in for attorney general because he's a lawyer and he has very robust very robust community behind him that could be very effective in the executive branch for law enforcement purposes and for really cleaning up New York. But we can't be scared and just vote because we're being told to vote, or hey, you have to back this person because we're all in, they won the primary. If that's going to continue and our voices are not heard, and we just have every group emerging that's saying that they're a victim advocate group, but then they silence their victims that are in their communities, and it's like Hungry Hippo. They're just eating victims, and then they're receiving monies, and then they're telling us what we need to have legislated. And at the end of the day, I'm not saying that these people are bad or anything, but it's just amazing how they can have these fancy advisors and all these big shots and not come up with better solutions or a better summary of what's needed. So, that's why we're in this. And day one, believe me, we would get to business. And like Derrick said about putting civilians in place, we could look at that very, very easily. There's many ways to incorporate that. But one of the best things to actually do, a very simple model, would be just to, have individuals appointed in regions, divide up the state in regions, just how they want to redistrict. Well, however many could handle, that can fulfill the role as someone who's deputized and take in complaints about these issues that are happening in the state that Internal Affairs doesn't want to touch, that CPS doesn't want to touch, that the Department of Investigation, the Attorney General, because everybody's bullshitting. And these attorney generals, they're not advocating for anything that's right. When they sue or get involved in anything, it's just to cover up everything and keep it going. And that's what it seems. So we need to get to business and have people that are deputized, that they can actually have force and order someone to go, a peace officer to go execute an arrest. Because here's the thing, and I want to be very clear on this. I'm not advocating, I'm not a fringe candidate that's saying that people need to be kidnapped or anything. I want to give disclosure on that, all right? But the thing is currently we have a bill in New York attempting to repeal citizens' arrest based on Ahmaud Arbery's death in Georgia, which was another tragedy. Now, currently in New York, and I'm assuming that it's going to continue unless people like us get in office to stop this, or suddenly our voices are heard. But when does this end? We need people to be exposed, to be arrested, and they can be given due process, and we'll get justice. But justice delayed is justice denied. And if we have people that can refer over, hey, this person needs to be investigated, there needs a warrant out for them, just like they did with the sheriffs out there. But it can't be this where the police can't look into CPS, or you're not allowed to record them, because people are taking advantage of knowing that the entire executive branch is jammed up in political and social justice reform. And they know that the CPS and the Adult Protective Services have this full range of latitude to commit crimes of fraud, perjury, all sorts of stuff. And they're stealing people's houses, children. And it's just this funneling effect into sucking your whole life away.
And Anthony, and when you mentioned about like the parties and so on, I think you and I talked about this earlier, yesterday or today, I forget. But so obviously the red, the blue, and we know that we personally want to lean more to the red, just for the sense of the fact that there's a little more sense left versus the other extreme left that's been doing this massive damage we see in our nation. And I understand, when I talk to the old timers, you got to understand that there was a healthy, normal Democratic Party. There was a healthy, normal Republican Party at one point in history. It seems like so far away, but I understand what they're saying. Like, well, we love these independent people, but we can't really vote for them. And I understand, Derrick is running Republican. Am I right? And then you're running independent, or
No, Republican.
no, Republican. Okay, I'm sorry for that. So, but we have to let them know that, like, and this is just in general, this is not just about here in New York, but it's important that you guys start supporting those that are human beings like this, that really care about the actual issues that are happening, not this political pocketbook that's going on out there, because you're just going to continue. You're laying out the future generations harm, is what you're doing by keeping this going. Okay, by continuing to keep this going, it is important that you latch on to these people that there are many in different states that I'm seeing that are genuine human beings, that just we need to get genuine human beings back into place. I mean, even like like Anthony's saying too, like if they're not on the ballot, write them in, and tell all your neighbors to write them in. We can't let this happen, because they're fighting you guys tooth and nail. And
don't sell out your children to check a box or to fill in a circle with someone who's not going to represent your interests and not bring bad people to justice, because the state of affairs and the crisis, the financial crisis here, where we're losing all of our money, nothing's being backed, nothing seems to be getting better, and we just have tons of inflation and nonsense going on. That it's the only way to be heard. If not, what do we have to do? Wait for another 4 years? No one's talking about what needs to be done in fixing this system, and we're not going to allow the system to fix itself.
That's
so
right.
you can in November, totally, whether it's ballot or not, write in what you believe. And like Derrick said, we are here for you to be your voice. We want to hear from people. We know everyone's got different experiences, but at the end of the day, the most important thing that I could say is going on is the dishonesty factor. And the people are benefiting and destroying lives off of that. It needs to be stopped. And it's the only thing that we can do. And by getting in people like us, perhaps the executive branch can get back to business and we can have a clean sweep addressing this type of corruption, just like Chicago did years ago with Operation Greylord, where they had a clean sweep across Illinois, which involved a lot of judges too. And it actually took years of attorneys going undercover and all. A very interesting story. But that's what we need to have here. And even Illinois is messed up right now. Believe me, it is. But at the end of the day, there is a rivalry between New York and Chicago, and especially over their pizza. And, we need to resolve the issue here, because this is getting really, really nonsensical, what's going on here. And the corruption is just off the charts. And before, I'll let you speak for a second, Frank, because I want to bring you some new and shocking information.
I just want to say, hold that thought. If you see right here, Kevin is saying that I guess Derrick's in Georgia right now, so the weather's really bad, and that's why he wasn't getting good signal. So thank you for that, Kevin. Keep going, Anthony.
Yes. So on Friday, April 8th, at 10 a.m. in Queens, in the borough of Queens in New York City, in front of the Queens Supreme Court, we are going to be having a rally regarding the corruption in the courts, more particularly the Queens Supreme Court. Recently, and I'm sure we can get the viewers, I'll put it in later in the thread on Facebook, but we would like to have some support for this.
No, I had it. I'm trying to find it.
Because one of the judges that I was familiar with in my divorce actually is involved in a scandal now with one of the opposing counsel, and they were stealing. Pretty much, it's fair to say stealing, because wouldn't you care? I mean, right? If we have prenuptial agreements that are, it's a legal thing to do, right? And it's something that's a private matter between people that are going to get married. And then if you didn't have that, you could get a postnuptial agreement. But where is it that in a prenuptial agreement, you can stipulate to whatever you want in the sake that, you guys are going to split, as a married couple. And then all of a sudden, through judges, you can get ordered to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars, which was actually stipulated against not to pay anyone's legal fees in the matter of a divorce, and now get forced to. It's terrible. So News 4 recently exposed some of these people that were involved. And I'll speak about it and include it into politics, not to taint what we're talking about here, but because it is relevant. And that's what's brought me here into the equation and why I'm here right now. So it's extremely relevant. We need support in addressing this type of stuff. And, at the end of the day, these, unions can do collective bargaining. Well, we're all citizens. We know what's up here. And besides someone who may be elected, which I find that would be extremely difficult to win over everyone. But I'm totally hoping that we have some sort of polar shift where people could wake up and smell the coffee, so that, we can have our interests represented, because we need to protect our children. And when we say children too, that extends to the elderly as well, because we see how they're being exploited as well, through the guardianships and the adult protective services. But we need to really, really hone in on these things. And I think it's past the point of where, people can ignore or say that they didn't know about these types of things occurring. But the police need to get back to business and start taking people's complaints, criminal complaints. It can't be that if you're the targeted parent in a family court proceeding, that you all of a sudden have no credibility and are just left to die. Because we do know that this system, especially going through custody, and I think in the veteran community, it's the most severe, because of all the post-traumatic stress and all the traumatic experiences and events. But the level of suicide happening is tremendous, and this is just so bad. And since we've been involved in this fight, I've seen many people die during custody litigation, especially people I served with. And so we know that that's the most severe, but we have to stop it. And the red wave doesn't have to be what the GOP wants. But I mean, because I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned that they really care. I mean, I know that they don't care about our interests. I recall in the summer going to a Farewell Cuomo event, and being kicked out. This was a GOP event upstate, being kicked out because I had gone there with some individuals who were talking about family court, and they got us kicked out and alleged that we attacked a pregnant lady. And that never happened. It's so ridiculous. But then later on, when we were listening on the ham radios, they said that we were Antifa. So it's all ridiculous. But this is what we're fighting. It's good versus evil. And I said, we're not all perfect. We're all sinners, but we're all humans. And there's nothing more important than bringing children into the world and, providing for their betterment and for their welfare. And people make mistakes. People can do anything. But what we're seeing happening is that the system's providing for worse outcomes and is actually, in fact, upon my findings, abusing children and neglecting to protect them under the state's interest, because they're allergic to accountability via immunity. So that's going to stop if someone like me gets in, especially in the role as president of the Senate, and also someone like myself in that position, which I'm saying that I hope the other people are listening, who may be running for office, so that they know that that's in their wheelhouse of responsibilities, so that when if they were to get in, that they would actually make sure they do the right thing. But also would be over to preside over the trial of impeachments for state officers in New York State. And we know that there's a lot of people that are qualified, highly qualified for impeachment. So, that's something that we could clean up house. But there's a lot of tools, but we need to effectively use them.
I agree 100%. So Anthony, I'm going to go ahead and put this back on the screen right now. Go ahead and talk about that again. This is this Friday.
Yes, and there's many people that have suffered by the hands of these individuals. And I'm just saying that, making a good faith effort to inform the community that you have to really, really be careful and make diligent efforts and research everything when you're getting caught into any type of case. And it's dangerous today, actually, to just believe that an attorney is going to represent your best interest, whether they're free or paid for. Anyone else, just like you take your car to get your oil changed. Are they really changing the oil? To assert that other people are representing your best interests or your child's best interests and thinking that you have better things to do or worry about, that's actually neglecting children. And the thing is we know that there's a lot of attorneys in this world today that are ineffective. And it seems that over time, with the social justice and all these reforms that we've witnessed, they're making it more likely that the system provides harm and recidivism for people. And really all it is just for grant money and to put everyone on services. And
so it's a moral issue. It's a moral issue.
It is, absolutely. It's human trafficking.
It's human trafficking. That's right. And it's absolutely human trafficking. And the thing is that, one of the things that we've been now incorporating is we've been incorporating biblical marriage counseling classes. And it's something that I've been wanting to do, like even in the colleges, to start out the young kids before they even get married, to make sure that they're making better decisions, that they know that marriage is a lifelong covenant, that they understand God's laws versus man's laws, so that this does not continue. Because obviously the more we stray from God, the more, and that's in any religion, really, if you really go down, if you really want to research it all out, but obviously I'm a Christian, but the more we stray from God, the more man takes over, and they cannot do the job. They just cannot. And so the corruption just continues to infiltrate. And that's why they don't have a moral compass, these people, because this is a moral issue, and they don't care about that. They don't care about the children or the elderly, the most vulnerable. They don't care about the victim that's actually genuinely getting punched. They don't care about just the families that are not able to be with their families. That's just, to me, that's, I don't know what worse you could do to somebody. I don't know what worse you could do, but separating biological blood from each other that loves each other, that actually does care and does protect and does do the right things by their children. Tucker Carlson, he was amazing the other day. I really like him. I know some people don't, but I really like him. And he said something, he was so right. He's like, this left side, they want to say everything that women say is 100% truth, but don't let them report abuse, because then all of a sudden they're a liar. Like, everything they say is contradictory. And as a man, and as a very decent, moral man, he clearly stated that a normal man wouldn't dream of hitting a woman, unless obviously she was, 7'5" and she was beating on you. So that's a no-brainer, but not to these people. And then when you're hiring these attorneys and they're well, we could say some names. We should say some names. I really want to go after that David Bedane's dude. Okay. I'm going to start exposing him very soon. But, there are these attorneys, and what they're doing is they're telling certain women and they're telling certain men, do this, do that, do the other thing. They're giving them these horrible ideas that are actually just badgering their families. And what they're doing, I don't know how they can have a heart to do this, because the children are the ones that are suffering so badly. Anyway, before I did want to post your anti-corruption rally. Is that this Friday? I just want to make sure that the audience knows, because if they're in the area, please talk about this. I'm going to put it back on the screen right now, Anthony.
Yes. And that's not limited to only, divorce. People have experienced divorce. If there's anyone in New York that's been affected by that Supreme Court, or any Supreme Court that wants to show up, the Supreme Court has jurisdiction over many different things. And, there's a lot of people that I've been speaking to over the years. And I mean, it's just horrible how people are stealing people's homes and all sorts of nonsense. And also there's lawsuits, where people can sue, a municipality and their workers for whatever negligence or for some tort, and attorneys are intentionally screwing up the cases so that the city doesn't have to pay out as much. And it's just so ridiculous, all the stuff that we have going on. But the level of dishonesty is what we're addressing, because if it wasn't for this dishonesty, we wouldn't have all of this. What is it, $3.6 billion in the judicial budget, whatever, and that's what they're claiming. So knowing how there's a lot of darkness and dishonesty going on in this community, and why our current state of affairs is so bad, it speaks volumes to how we got there. These people, like Pastor Earl Wallace said, are they're invoking the dark ages upon us. And at the end of the day, it's so ridiculous because all these people are doing is just wearing a black dress or something. I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing of all time. But we need to get back to common sense, and we want to see people there. You can share this if you go onto the QR code. If you pull this up or you see it on one of the pages, you can put your phone to a computer screen or tablet or whatever and pop up the QR, and it'll take you to the story that was done by Sarah Wallace, by News 4, who had revealed this issue that was going on, where they actually jailed the father, who was the doctor, pediatrician, and it's just really, really horrible. Perhaps we can get him on soon, or people can come see that day. But I mean, it's good that we finally have people coming together, because we've all been trying to come together and everything, but the time is now. And people need to come together, and the best thing to come together on, with regards to the people dealing with our families and how they're mishandling their job, because reasonable people who haven't been affected by these people, they may think different of what's really going on. But that's where we have to come in and show that it's the amount of harm. And then this immunity thing is removing the liability factor, which that's convenient, just like the vaccine liability shields, right? So it's all ridiculous. But we need to get back to business, unite on the most simplest issues. We and the thing is, to people who are young, like you stated, we need to educate them. We really do need to educate people, and this will come up with domestic violence, whatever. We really do need to warn people about the responsibility of bringing children into the world, because as easy it is to bring children into this world, it's even easier to get them out of your life through a third party or a willing participant, sadly, of who you created the child with. But what we see going on is horrible. And further in the future, I'd be able to provide you more of what I plan on bringing to the table, with plans of action. Today, we're just loosely focusing on, the effects of these issues lasting, because at the end of the day, I'm not happy with how the system is working in New York, and I know many people can agree on that. So that day, if anyone can come out there at 10 a.m., April 8th, in front of the Queen's Supreme Court to show support or share your story, bring a sign, that'd be great. And you can also, if you've never been in front of a courthouse, and they are open now, they are also doing virtual proceedings too, but you might perhaps see the money van that's outside, that has all this cash on hand. It's just, it's like a video game or a sci-fi movie.
Money van. Talk about this money van. What is this that has represented?
At times I've passed by there. There's a van or two outside that says that they have cash on hand in the van. And with the story that's in the QR code there, you can see how this father, who was a doctor, who had a prenup that specifically stated and stipulated he's not to pay anyone's legal fees in the matter of a divorce. Well, now he's getting, several times he's had to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then he was given 2 hours to come up with an extraordinary amount, which was 6 figures, and they threw him in Rikers Island for 3 days. And then this peanut story is just so ridiculous. But we need to show support to one another. And right now, there's nothing more important that exposing, you know, bad people in government or people who are glorified by political parties on both the left and the right and are never addressed adequately for their willful, intentional, and negligent failures, malfeasance, misfeasance, blatant corruption that need to be addressed because there's nothing more important. We're not going to fix climate change before that. I'm more concerned about pollution in the environment, and this is pollution, and we need to get rid of it. And that's not a threat. It means that we clearly have a great policy argument to show the harm that's being caused here. And at the end of the day, whether it's the discretion, the policies, the rules, the laws, the whatever the case may be, harm's being done here, and we need to have a meeting of the minds and address these issues. And there's nothing better than to abolish the whole Family Court Act and you know, start from zero or nothing, or have criminal you know, criminal court can handle a lot of the stuff, in which a lot of times it does. But this is being used as a enterprise which has a lot of corruption in it, and it's very sad to know that there's not people running, talking about these topics, and then want you to just assume that when they get in, they're going to handle it. I'm not going to hold my breath on that anymore. So, you know, we need to, because if not, then we're going to have to wait another 4 years. We need to get behind candidates, whoever's your candidate, but that are speaking about real stuff, not diversity, equity, inclusion. I don't agree with any of that, but that's my view because they created it into existence to talk about it because they're establishment people.
It's a
And that's what
diversion.
they're going to have.
It's a
And then
diversion.
they make it popular on TV. And it's just so ridiculous. But we need to talk. If we can't keep our own children, something's really out of whack. And when I was in Iraq, we were dealing with terrorists that were stealing children and beheading them. So it's no different than this. Symbolically, that's how I feel. And knowing the harm and the deaths and abuse of children that's happened already, that I know about, and that's going to happen, that we can just expect because of this risk that the children are actually continuously put in because of the negligence and corruption going on. It's so shocking, and nothing's more important. So, you know, I'm not trying to satisfy people or shut up, and I'm only going to get louder. You know, we'll do whatever we have to do. We'll fly a hot air balloon across the city if we have to, because the family court issues and this court corruption going on throughout, any sort of corruption needs to be addressed. And there's no better way than to really come together and support one another. The police commissioner today was talking about really, really good about corruption, and you know, how there's no part for it because people need to come forward. If there's something, if you see something, say something. Well, how is it when you see something in the family court, no one cares? It's a civil matter. And
Talk
good
about
luck.
that all. I talk about that all the time. People say something every second of the day, and they're completely ignored and ostracized for it. You know, Anthony, one final question before we wrap up. How can people help? How can the viewers help the two of you, Derrick Gibson and yourself, to get you guys over the top and where we need you to get you on in office? How can they help?
Well, the best thing would be to go to Gibson, the number 4 governor.com. On there's actually the link to donate to the campaign, which is on Win Red. You can also go on to Win Red. You can Google that and type in Gibson for New York State, and it'll come up. My site that I just started recently, I have a link to the Win Red on there. Mine is Cibelli for NY. That's Cibelli for NY.com. And, you know, you can contact us. We're open to hearing your story so that we can talk about it and things just like this. And we'll probably do this again more in the future. And, you know, whatever your story is, if you or you can contribute, you know, let us know how we can mutually help one another so that, you know, we can actually try to make New York a better place, a safer place. And, you know, safer and being safe, not just from these people on the street that they want you to think are out there, that are out there to harm you, but the people that are out in the open or in a courtroom or in some sort of other state government position that are intentionally harming you, intentionally covering up, fabricating something. We need to stop this. We need to get back to truth, equality, and justice and equal protection under the law. So please visit Gibson4governor.com, the number 4, Sabelli 4NY. And if you can make a donation, if you could donate $5, $10, whatever it is. And also feel free to send emails on both sites that I just mentioned. And if you have any concerns, we can address it and work cohesively together so that we can get your story out and also talk about how we would help address your situation.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being here today. I think we've gone over massive amounts of topics and solutions to the
Don't
issues.
thank me. Thank the family court.
Yes, thank you, Family Court, for giving us this never-ending topic. But no, but I do appreciate you and Derrick, and I apologize that Derrick, I guess Derrick was having all kinds of weather issues. He's out in Georgia, which is what I just found out. So, but I think we did get a lot of the interest, a lot of interesting solutions to what's plaguing New York State. That's our answer. Like I said, guys, Sabelli, Gibson and Sabelli ticket. Let's get them into office. And you will have a voice, because I will make sure that I am screaming in their ear 24 hours a day once they're in office. I also plan on having a big party on the lawn up in Albany. We already got the streamers and the strobe lights and what's that big disco ball? The big disco ball. So, once they get in there, we'll celebrate real big for the state of New York to bring health back and sanity back to New York State. So
we
I really
play pin the tail on the Cuomo.
yeah, pin the tail on the Hochul, Como, and everybody else. That'll be a lot of fun. So thank you guys so much. Also, again, there he is down here, Sabelli for New York. Is that just SabelliForNewYork.gov or Sabelli?
No, .com.
I'm sorry. So it's SabelliForNewYork.com. If you see it here, SabelliForNewYork.com. And then there's Gibson 4. It's the number 4s, guys. Governor.com. So they're both .com, so that you know. Also, if you guys, again, if you need help with your family court or CPS matters, that would be, I think they just took it off. It's punishforbeingaaparent.com, punishforbeingaaparent.com, and just go to the Book of Talk section. So again, I want to thank my guests very much, Derrick Gibson and Anthony Cibelli, running for governor and lieutenant governor of the state of New York. Don't forget, get the book, Punish for Protecting the Injustice System of Family Court. It's on Amazon. And again, if you need my help, right there in the link, punishedforbeingaaparent.com. Thank you guys. Have a very blessed day.